we just kind of wanted to get like an idea and insight of what your life is like with the esports and in such a male dominated industry. So we could just like start there. Do you feel you have as much opportunity compared to your peers? Like, what made you choose esports? And do you have like any specific struggles when dealing with it? Or do you find that there's not as much like sexism going on as you would like an outsider would think?
So I think so I've been in esports for I think almost 4 years now. And I think it's an amazing industry to be in because it's extremely young and creative. So it's still like very malleable, and things are always shifting, and a lot of new ideas and a lot of creative people coming in and out. So when you're on the inside of esports, at least in my personal perspective, I feel like everyone's extremely accepting, and social, and everyone wants to get to know each other and collaborate and work with each other. But I just think there is, like most industries, and especially the entertainment industry, there's just like a disconnect and understanding of equal opportunities and getting minorities into the doorway of esports. So at least for me, I was working originally in a studio for video games, and tapping a little bit into the Overwatch League with the LA Valiant. And then when I shifted completely over to esports, not that many women when I first started, but once FTW started, and we kind of like created this social network of women, mostly in Los Angeles, but just really expanding and having like more of a social reach and really tapping into the women of esports market. It was a beautiful thing to see that how many women were already established in esports and how many women were interested in esports and video games. It was just kind of like having that reaching hand to actually connect everybody.
Yeah, and to chime in here a little bit, like for me personally, I feel like at the executive level, and those like higher ranks, like on esports staff and just staff in general, like it's harder for someone who is a woman to maybe be considered for those positions. A lot of the times, and like, look, when you hire for a job, you want experience, right? But because of the way the space is, and not to discredit anything that like any of like our male pioneers have done for esports, a lot of those people who are veterans for 10 years have been men. So it's, as someone who's in the industry now, it's kind of like my job to make sure that when I'm selecting people for my team or passing information on to like hiring managers, that I'm doing the best I can to make sure that other people get the opportunities, and just include other people into that pool of people.
So what made you guys like choose esports in general? Because you could do anything in the world right now, especially with COVID. It kind of impacts everything that we're doing. But why esports? Why is there such a push for women in esports compared to other sports that are getting a lot of attention right now?
So I got into esports. It was actually like the perfect industry for me. So I was a collegiate athlete. I played D3 lacrosse, and I was an animation major, and I focused in game development. So when I heard about esports and competitive gaming, it was kind of just like the best mix of both worlds of professional athletes and competition mixed with like the beauty and storytelling of video games and the strategy of video games, which I like so much. But I think like, especially with COVID, it's proving it, like games are so hot, streaming is so hot. It's an amazing thing that you can connect with people all around the world and play a game together. And it's kind of like a cultural, they bring people together. So I think esports is super hot right now. I think it's just going to keep growing. But just the fact that it's so accessible to everyone, and esports and video games is an equalizer between men and women. Like there's no biological variations between male and female players. So it's an amazing leveler to get everyone on the same playing field.
Yeah, I mean, and for me personally, like I always liked playing games as a kid, but I admit that I never had really great internet growing up. So I was kind of restricted to like single player or just watching. So I watched League and I watched Dota for a long time. When Overwatch League came out, I was I watched that a lot. I watched it on the train. I was working in New York and I would commute from Philly there and back every day watching the matches. And it was cool, right? So when my contract was about to be up, I saw an opening at the Fusion, applied, and was really annoying, I tracked down someone at Spectacore Gaming's like HR department, and I emailed them to follow up. Like really, really like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, you know, college grad, right? And then I just went all in, right? And it was probably super annoying to deal with, but I was relentless. I figured if I was going to try to get this job, I was going to try with like everything that I had to get this gig. And I did, right? So, you know, after a month of interviews and like email tag, I, you know, got the offer and, you know, moved to LA a week later.
Do you
You're in
feel
LA
like,
dream, Linz. That's awesome.
do you feel that's where like all your opportunity is like LA and the West Coast more so than the East Coast?
I would say that while the industry is very saturated on the West Coast, I've noticed a lot of esports orgs kind of opening up those remote positions. I have a lot of friends that work Middle America, East Coast, in New York. They work for teams that are based in LA. So that actually makes me really happy as someone who is an East Coast native to see that there are still remote opportunities for people to like get into the space.
Yeah, and just to hop on that, I feel like LA and was kind of like the epicenter for esports for a while, but maybe it was a COVID thing. But I feel like I also have just seen so many non-gaming companies and non-sports companies get into esports that there's been a lot of other esports opportunities just across the country. Like Budweiser is into esports. You know what I mean? Like there's just so many different companies tapping into this market right now because it's so hot. So it's been really cool to see.
So
Paige,
like,
you want to go? You go.
so with it expanding, then do you feel there's more opportunity in the next like 6 months to a year?
6 months to a year. I mean, obviously with COVID, who knows, but definitely more esports opportunities as more companies are getting involved. And just like with COVID, like seeing how there's now virtual concerts and like our FTW tournament was obviously 100% virtual. There's so much behind the scenes that goes into these virtual events that it might not be like you in front of the camera playing, but there's so many different esports opportunities across the entire board, whether it's biz dev, sales, production like Lindsay. So yeah, there's definitely more esports roles expanding. And I'm excited to see how our company expands, but also how other companies tap into this market and expand with us as well.
Yeah, pretty much said it perfectly. I think if COVID wasn't around, I think we'd probably see a lot more brands getting into esports in a more meaningful way. Naturally, like, you know, you think that, you know, COVID and esports is all online and it's all virtual. So like, it's really easy to get involved. I think it's important to remember that a lot of, especially brands, really should be getting involved in a meaningful way, in a way that connects with the audience that's already here. Because there's one thing I've learned, and like one thing I know as an esports fan, like we can smell a fake real easily. So yeah, I think hopefully once the global pandemic sort of hopefully is, you know, in a better spot next year, like the year after, however long it takes, we'll see more brands kind of get involved and play ball with us.
So speaking of like brands and games, because for example, like Mercedes-Benz announced that they are League of Legends official car today. Like, what is that all about? But as far as games, like what games are you trying to promote equality in? Because for example, you look at like League of Legends, right? You have Worlds starting in 5 days. You have it starting this weekend, but it's like the whole slate, with the exception of a few coaches and managers that are women. What games are you guys trying to promote equality in, but also what games do you represent?
Yeah, so I think promoting equality, I would really like to see more equality in Valorant, just because it's such a new game to the scene, and the scene really hasn't been like Riot has had the Ignition series, which is great, but there isn't an established like league with a season yet, right? There's still, I think if there's a chance, I don't know if you watched the FTW tournament, but Magical is probably one of the best, one of the best teams out there. I'm pretty sure they could maybe take on, you know, the likes of like Gen G or Envy. Definitely the first iteration of 100 Thieves roster, I'll say.
Say it with confidence, Linz, yes.
Definitely the first 100 Thieves roster. But I think to see if they're able to make a splash in Valorant, it's huge for the space, it's huge for the game, and it's huge for women in gaming. Because if I have to hear the league analogy one more time, I'm gonna scream.
Yeah, and going off of what Lindsay just said, I mean, women take up more than half the population. Valorant has been the perfect platform for us to start with our all women tournaments because it's so new and because we work with the Galorants, which is an amazing female Galorant community. So they're there and they're hungry to play and they're hungry to be established. But I think working with these newer games that are kind of just making it to the scene to get as many women in there as possible when it's first starting is super important and has been really successful for us so far. Obviously, there's some games that have such established communities and are known to have very toxic male-dominated communities. But the more female representation we get in these newer games, those games are going to become outdated if they don't get along with the times. So just with our experience so far, it's been successful working with a game like Valorant, but we're definitely excited to expand into other games as we go.
So following up with that, because if you look at like the college level, when it's funded by the students, there seems to be a lot more women who are on the teams and who are like more involved. But when it comes to the schools actually getting funding for scholarships and stuff, it seems like the women kind of get pushed out pretty quickly. And obviously your guys' goal as a company isn't to create a separate women's leagues, particularly for Valorant, right? What is the end goal for your company / for your guys' goals?
I think the end goal is to just highlight as many women as possible. It's to normalize women in gaming. So when every team is 50-50 split, women on the team, or there's more women on a team, or it's a common thing to see women on every single esports team. And it's a common thing to see women as coaches and managers and in front of and behind the camera. That's the end goal. With being a women in gaming org, it's a scary topic to talk about and it's got this taboo behind it. So the steps we're taking are very strategic because you can't make a mistake when you're when you're trying to do something like this, because we'll just get shit on as soon as we make too grand of a mistake and we'll get shut down and people won't want to follow us. So with the steps that we've been taking of first establishing an all-women Valorant tournament, seeing how much hype we got, it blew up obviously, and we got so much really good feedback, and Riot came and supported us, which was amazing. The end goal is to have equal representation in esports and on teams, but just giving these women the platform to actually show off their skill, because like Lindsay said, Magical is a professional esports team. Like they are top tier competitive and they are going to take over the Valorant scene. Not many people know about them because they're an all women's team and they're not represented yet. So it's kind of it's highlighting those players who are already like on a team and getting them into the main line, but also giving women who may not have a team yet, or they're just getting their feet wet and they're still in the amateur space, but giving them these opportunities and this platform to actually grow to the professional level, and then get signed by orgs and get onto these professional teams that are all male dominated.
So then
I can pop off.
So then, like, are you advertising toward not necessarily advertising, but how are you putting it out there that women shouldn't be intimidated to enter this type of industry? Because I know as a female, I'm not into gaming necessarily per se, but with golf, I was big for golf. I used to go to these camps with like LPGA pros and everything, and I did one where I was the only girl, and I had kids kicking my ball, moving it, and saying I'm not losing to a girl. And this was back 3-4 years ago. So how are you trying to end that stigma of intimidation, where women are saying, okay, I'm more confident and feeling more comfortable going into this industry?
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of different steps and levels that we've already been taking that we're planning on taking in the future as we expand. So like first and foremost, like one of the things that I preach to everyone in FTW and also have been chatting with our Nerd Street Gamers coworkers with is like so bottom level is cyberbullying and not making women feel welcome just online and they feel unsafe in the gaming space. So one thing that we've really been stressing is that all of the internal FTW workers, when they're on Twitter and they're in the chat and they're dealing with trolls, that you are you're communicating with compassion and facts, and you're not like going down to their level. So like bare bones is just like respect and kindness. Like we're not going to drop down to like a trolls level. Like we're not going to be virtually kicking anyone's golf balls back at them. You know what I mean? And I think what was so successful with the Valorant tournament was we had the qualifier the week before was teaming up with Galorants, which was like already this huge Discord community of so many women that wanted to be there. And if you haven't heard of Galorant yet, you should really go check them out because they have one thing that I thought was amazing was they have female Galorant players giving lessons to women who want to learn how to play Galorant, who want to play Valorant, excuse me. And I think that's such an amazing opportunity for girls to be in a safe space and learn how to play a game. Especially, I feel like, at least from me growing up and just being with my brother and all of my guy cousins, like it was so intimidating to ask them to play Halo or Call of Duty with, because there's just like a graphic first-person shooter game that like they all knew how to play already, and like I could never keep up with them just because I had just started and they're older and they're crazy. So I think providing women a safer, calmer environment with other women that are also trying to learn games has been a great opportunity for women in the Valorant space. And I definitely would love to see that more. And I would definitely love for FTW to also get into that, the coaching and like little league space, I guess, of esports.
So with the Little League, then you'll be essentially teaching the younger kids how to like grow up, like basically if there's a recreational league for either t-ball or soccer or something. And I think too, especially with times COVID, now is the perfect time to do that because nobody's out. And obviously esports you can do by yourself with those nice social distancing, if you do with groups. So do you think COVID kind of helped with the takeoff of esports, or do you think it more hindered the potential it could have become this year?
Lindsay, what do you think? I definitely think that it's made it, we've gotten more creative with being completely online. And it's been really fun to see how different companies are taking on COVID and being completely virtual. But Lindsay, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like that COVID hampered any kind of growth. It was really just an adaptation that had to be made by the industry as a whole. Like you saw Overwatch League go online, you saw League go online. They're doing Worlds in that same bubble system the NBA is using. And like that's something that like it's not just esports, right? Like sports as a whole learned how to do this in these like really, really very strange and like I hate saying uncertain times, but like strange and really just challenging moments in our life right now. Esports has adapted extremely well to an online format, obviously, but I think hopefully once this is all over, you'll see them back in the studio because I think that's where they were the strongest. And that is where you kind of get those people who are not necessarily familiar with the space to kind of accept it slightly more. Just because esports was the only sport for, however many months at the very beginning, because baseball had stopped and everything else had stopped, didn't mean that there were more eyeballs coming, right? Didn't mean that like, basketball fans were like, oh, basketball's not on, so I'm going to go watch League now. It's not necessarily how that works. So to keep kind of competing with that same like high quality broadcast and high quality content is kind of, where you're going to see growth in the space, I believe.
Yeah. And to hop off of that, I think like one of my favorite things about esports was the live events. And I think that going to the arena and seeing like having like the DJ come out and like open up the performance before like the game actually started, and seeing people like get like freak out over Gritty coming to like the fusion matches. That was like really what was kind of like, I don't want to say normalizing, but comparing it to like mainstream athletics, which I think a lot of people on the outside looking in of esports they were able to like have a better grasp on what esports was and what we were standing for when you saw the live events. But one thing that I have thought has been really cool with COVID is the cross integration between traditional sports and esports during this time, because like Lindsay said, like we didn't have sports for so long and everyone was kind of desperate to just see some competition. So it was like you weren't going to get your traditional NBA fan to watch the Overwatch League, but when the NBA gets a bunch of their players to play NBA 2K and they all live stream on Twitch together, like you're going to get that cross viewership of esports fans and sports fans coming to the same Twitch channel, which I thought was a really creative and amazing thing to see, the cross between esports and traditional sports during COVID. So definitely would love to see more of that and see how people get creative with making esports more mainstream and palatable to your average sports consumer, I guess.
So for me and Paige, one thing that we've been talking about is how, because we're not professional journalists, right? We're studying to do that. Obviously, we're amateurs.
You're doing
But
great.
Thank you. What can we as amateurs / people who are trying to come up and cover programs like this, like what can we do to get it in a better light, to get it more focused, to get more eyeballs, like Lindsay was talking about? What can we do besides just tweeting and hopping in on a stream? Like, what is something that we can do coverage wise? Is there specific stories or avenues that we need to cover? High school, college, like what do we need to do in order to make it better?
I would say talk about the things that you guys are really interested in talking about. Obviously, I mean, Lindsay and I are too. Like, we're all really young, and you picked your major as an 18-year-old. Like, who knows what you're going to be doing in 20 years? Make sure you're doing things that you want to be doing in each stage of your life. So like, talk about the things that you want to talk about and cover the things that you want to cover. I've seen people blow up on Twitch so quickly. So just producing as much content that you enjoy yourself as possible. And I think Twitch has been a great gateway for a lot of people because it is kind of like you building your own community of viewers along with you. And then also, like, I went to Emerson, which was just like a huge film school, and everyone was an Emmy nom before graduating.
I'm from Rhode Island, so I know all about
really?
Emerson, so
Love that place. So just, but like, everyone's so like, everyone, like, yeah, like you get nominated for an Emmy before you graduate from that school. It's crazy. But I think just whenever you have a project that you like, or whenever you have a topic that you're interested in, like, produce some content around it, whether it's writing up an article, tweeting about it, making a video, doing more of these interviews. Like, you're going to find more, especially in esports. Like, people love to talk about esports, and they love to talk about this like niche market that we're in right now. So I would just say, like, yeah, produce as much content as possible, but always make sure you're doing the things that you're actually interested in talking about.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, as someone does esports and has been here for a little bit, like, I like to hear the stories about people that like maybe aren't as well known in the space, or new things that are coming up, right? Every publication I know like talks about League of Legends and talks about Overwatch League, and that's great, you know. But tell me about like the team managers. Tell me about people who maybe I don't really think about off the top of my head when I think about like Cloud9 or T1 or Fusion, right? But as with like pretty much what Meredith was saying, you have to enjoy it. Because I mentioned earlier that, and Nick, you probably know, Paige, you probably already know, esports fans can sniff out a fake really quick. So enjoying your own work just kind of adds that level of being genuine. And if you're not enjoying what you're doing, people will notice. And people will know, right? And it doesn't really help anything, right? You have to enjoy the content that you make, because it's only going to be better content when it comes out.
all right. Do you find that, like, when it comes to branding yourself per se, and growing your audience, do you find that being difficult since you're a female, or do you find that just a walk in the park kind of thing, you're doing you?
Can I answer that real quick before?
Yeah.
So like, as far as the branding goes, because I feel like a really bad stereotype as far as like towards female gamers and streamers is like, there's YouTube videos on top 10 hottest streamers. It's not like top 10 best streamers who are women. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how does that impact your brand? And going off of what Paige was asking.
I'm actually horrific at building my brand. I spent most of my career building the Fusion and building T1. So getting on my own social at the end of the day was kind of like the last thing that I wanted to do. But I think, I mean, like, social kind of made me jaded in that way, right? Like, I spend all day building brands. I don't want to build mine. Should have been, but I didn't. So I just made sure that like what I was posting, I enjoyed, right? Like, if I want to post a selfie and like look cute, then great. You know what I mean? If I want to post memes and just have a good time and troll my friends, then awesome. But I think it is really tough to kind of balance that that desire of like wanting to be that, right? Or you're thinking that you have to be that in order to be kind of accepted and to grow in the space, right? I don't think it's necessary, but I know that the feeling is the feeling that I dealt with and something that a lot of people that I know have dealt with. Because you are not X, you will not grow, or because you are not Y, you will not, like, no one's going to notice you as a professional or as like a woman in the space. But I don't think that's true. I think we just need to kind of like remember that it's not true.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like also, especially now with social media and esports, like everyone's on Twitter for esports, everyone's on Instagram and Twitch. I think also, at least for me, it's been like kind of keeping my like professional brand up more than my personal brand for Twitter. So it's like I was obviously like tweeting a bunch about the FTW event and how tired I was and how my poor dog wasn't walked for like days, kind of like on like a lighthearted way to like keep it funny. But I think it also just goes back to your previous question where it's kind of like you need your online brand to be about the things that you love and the things that you love about your job and the things that you love about your life. Obviously, it is a performance online. You're only highlighting the best things, but when you're in esports and you're working on some really cool projects like we are, you want to hype up your own company and be like, my company's awesome. Look at the cool things that we are doing. But at the same time, like you want to hype yourself up. Like I worked extremely hard on this project and I'm so proud of it. And I want to hype my own company up, but also hype up the product and hype up myself because we're all in this together and we're helping esports grow. And then also going back to what Lindsay said before with like being authentic. What is so amazing about esports is that it's the grassroots of the online gamer community. And like, it's kind of, I hate using the term like nerds and geeks, but it is like giving the nerds a voice of esports and like making them this like giving them mainstream entertainment and high quality entertainment. And people want to see it online. Like people want to see you excited about your teams and excited about the cool things that you're producing. So I think obviously there's a lot of negativity online just in general. And in esports, like the internet is a toxic place. But I think just from my perspective, like the people that I follow and the things that I post and the positive feedback that I've gotten from online is definitely like embracing the good and highlighting the good and hopefully inspiring other people to be as positive and as supportive in esports as well.
Well, thank you for meeting with us, guys. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
I know that y'all probably have stuff to do. Life's busy, weirdly enough, through COVID.
Yeah. No.
But is there anything that you two want to add? We'll just give you kind of the floor that you want to add last little bit of time, or you
we are taking recommendations, advice, and all things that our fans of FTW want. So if anyone or you guys have any ideas and you want to hit up the FTW Twitter and just DM me, whether you want another video game tournament or you want a virtual event or you want a panel or you want us to tap into a different game other than Valorant, we're all ears and we're definitely here for the community. So just preaching that.
Yeah. And since you guys like I've been in your shoes and Meredith has too, it's gotta be, I don't envy being in college during like this like whack time. But if there's anything that like I can kind of impart is just to be annoying, be relentless. It's the only way I got here. It's the only way I've stayed. So if you want something, like don't be afraid to just go get it and bother as many people as you have to get what you want.
Definitely.
Well, reach out to me and Paige if you do have another tournament. If there's anything else that you
Absolutely.
want to cover, we are more than willing.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, y'all are great.
This
Kelsey,
was
are we
great
good?
insight too. Like,
Good. Yeah. I hope we gave you enough good content. Yeah.
oh yeah.
Oh my
just
gosh,
being,
yeah.
It's like I'm not into drama, so I don't really associate with other girls. Like I talk to more guys, and when you talk to girls, you can't really have conversations like this because sometimes they don't see like what you're referencing, or even guys are like, there's no such thing as sexism in the workplace. And just like as a female, you want to hear from people who are in the industry you want to go into, how'd you get your start? Like, what can I do? Because I'm already 5 steps behind Nick just because of my gender.
Yeah. And I think it's also, I mean, you're definitely going to see this too once you graduate. And once again, like Lindsay and I are not that much older than you guys, but after each stepping stone, like after each milestone in your life, you realize more and more that the people you associate yourself with is super important. and each step of your life is completely different with the people that you meet. And you do change your perspective on who you want to associate yourself with and who you want to work with. So just definitely keep that in mind as well. But yeah, seriously, reach out to us if you guys have any more questions, and we'll hit you guys up if we do another tournament anytime soon. But yeah, we're women in gaming. We're here to help, and we definitely want to be as inclusive as possible. So we're always
Yeah.
around.